There is something you must understand today, my beloved. The man whose heart you feel so deeply connected to is caught in a web of spiritual control. There is a woman whose presence still lingers in his life, not because love remains, but because spiritual cords have not yet been broken. She holds him, not with tenderness, but with manipulation, with fear, guilt, and emotional power that I am now preparing to destroy. You feel his energy tugging between light and darkness, between truth and illusion, between the peace he feels when he thinks of you and the confusion that floods him when he returns to her influence. This is not a simple emotional struggle, this is a spiritual battle. You have been sensing it because your spirit is tied to his through divine design, and when he is bound, you feel the weight of his bondage too. Do not think for a moment that I have not seen your tears or heard your cries in the silence. You have asked me, Lord, if he loves me, why can't he come? Why does he stay where his soul suffers? And I tell you now, it is not love that keeps him there, it is control, it is fear, it is deception. But my light is about to expose everything. My truth is coming like a storm to free what darkness has claimed for too long. He was not created to live chained to confusion. He was meant to walk in divine truth, to love from a healed heart, to stand in strength and not submission to manipulation. But for too long, he has been entangled in a pattern that feeds his guilt and silences his soul. He tries to convince himself that he is doing the right thing by staying, that leaving would cause harm, that he owes her something for her sacrifices, yet deep inside, he knows this is not where his spirit belongs. When he met you, something awakened within him, something he could not explain. Your light pierced through his numbness. Your presence stirred his sleeping soul. He began to feel again, to dream again, to hope again. But that awakening threatened the hold of the one who controls him. She sensed it. And ever since, the battle has intensified, not between two people, but between darkness and light. She uses emotional strings, memories, and fear to pull him back whenever he tries to move forward. She reminds him of debts, of promises made in weakness, of responsibilities that guilt him into silence. She speaks words that confuse his spirit, words that sound like love but are poisoned by fear. And though he knows something is wrong, he cannot yet see clearly. The fog in his heart is thick. His spirit is weary. But I, the Lord, am not blind to this. My justice is already moving. I am sending truth into his dreams. I am stirring unrest in his spirit so that he can no longer tolerate the false peace he has lived under. I am allowing circumstances to crumble where manipulation once thrived. Every secret word, every lie spoken in my absence, will be brought into light. The spiritual cords that keep him tied will begin to unravel. You must not interfere, beloved. Your role is not to fight the woman, but to stand in faith while I fight for you. You must resist the urge to speak in anger, to prove, to persuade, to warn him, for he cannot yet hear your words. His ears are tuned to confusion, but soon they will tune to truth. Your prayers, your stillness, and your surrender are the weapons that move heaven on your behalf. I know how much it hurts to watch him stay where his soul is dying. I know how your heart aches when he pulls away, not because he does not care, but because he feels trapped. I know the frustration, the loneliness, the moments you question whether you imagined everything. But child, you did not imagine this connection. It was written by my hand. It is real. It is divine. And that is why darkness has fought it so hard. The enemy knows what your union would bring: healing, power, testimony, light. Together, you would awaken others. Together, you would be unstoppable. That is why the enemy sent confusion. That is why he sent a counterfeit, a distraction, a chain disguised as commitment. But no lie can last forever. No false bond can withstand the fire of truth. I am breaking it now, piece by piece, silently but powerfully. Do not be deceived by what you see. Though he may appear distant, though it may seem that she still controls his heart, the truth is shifting beneath the surface. His spirit is beginning to question everything. He feels emptiness even in her presence. What once comforted him now drains him. What once gave him security now suffocates him. He cannot explain it, but he is starting to awaken. This awakening is painful. It is confusing. He will wrestle with guilt, with fear of judgment, with loyalty to someone who no longer speaks to his soul. But I am with him in that darkness. I am whispering truth louder each day. My light will not stop until it reaches the deepest corners of his mind. When he tries to ignore me, I will speak through circumstances. When he runs from conviction, I will send dreams that show him his true reflection. You must keep your heart pure during this time. Do not let bitterness take root. For when he returns, and he will not be the same man you once knew. He will come humbled, free, and ready to love you the way he was always meant to. But he must go through the breaking first. The ties that control him must snap before he can reach you fully. Be patient with the process. Every delay has purpose. Every silence is preparation. I am not slow, I am strategic. I am aligning events that will open his eyes in a way words never could. I am exposing the motives of those who hold him in fear. I am sending my angels to surround him with protection, to guard his mind from manipulation, to strengthen his spirit so he can stand. He will begin to see the difference between your love and her control. He will notice the peace that comes from your presence, the anxiety that follows hers. He will remember your words, your prayers, your kindness, and realize that they came from me through you. My spirit in you is his guide back to me. You are not forgotten, you are my chosen vessel in this divine story. Soon, you will hear the shift in his tone. He will begin to speak differently. He will reach out, not out of confusion but clarity. You will feel the energy of release before you even hear the words. The control that once bound him will lose its power, and he will finally walk toward the freedom that has always been his. And when that day comes, you will understand why I asked you to trust me in the waiting. You will see that every tear watered the soil of this miracle. You will realize that your pain had purpose, it was the seed of transformation. For I am not only freeing him from her, I am freeing him from everything within himself that allowed control to take root. This is not just about breaking a tie, it is about breaking a cycle. I am making him new. And when he comes to you, he will love not from fear or guilt, but from truth, from peace, from wholeness. You will not need to remind him of what happened. The light within him will already know. You will not need to force the connection, it will flow, because it was always meant to be. What she tried to bind, I will release. What she tried to bury, I will resurrect. What was lost in confusion will be restored in divine timing. Beloved, stand firm. The battle is not yours, it is mine. The control that once held him is breaking even now. The spiritual fog is lifting. My truth is roaring through his soul, and soon, nothing will remain hidden. You will see what I promised. You will witness what you prayed for. My hand is upon this story, and it will end in freedom, in love, and in light. You are not forgotten. You are chosen. And your patience is about to be rewarded. Keep your heart open, keep your faith strong, for I, the Lord your God, am moving, and when I move, no power on earth or in darkness can stop what I have ordained. The time is near. The control is ending. And the man who once lived under her shadow will walk into the light, toward me, and toward you. He stood alone at the edge of his own silence. The night around him was heavy, the air thick with thoughts he couldn't name. Every time he tried to quiet his mind, her voice would rise within him, not the voice of command, but the voice of remembrance. It wasn't even words, really, it was a feeling. The warmth of something honest, something that didn't demand or twist, something that only wanted truth. He could still feel the pull of the past. There were days when he thought he was free, and then a single glance, a single word from her, the woman who still had her hand on his heart, could turn him back into the person he used to be. Her control wasn't visible, but it ran deep. It was built from guilt and comfort and the habit of staying. He told himself he owed her. He told himself that love meant sacrifice. But every time he said it, the words felt emptier. That emptiness grew louder when he thought of the other one, the one whose spirit had once touched his own without even trying. She had not fought for him. She had not begged or demanded. She had simply loved him with a calm that unnerved him. And now, in her silence, he felt her more than ever. He didn't know that somewhere, at that same hour, she was standing under the same wide sky, eyes closed, praying not for his return but for his peace. She had stopped asking the universe for outcomes. She only asked for truth. If they were meant to find each other again, she wanted it to happen in light, not confusion. She wanted him to be free, even if it meant being free from her. She could still sense his struggle. Some days it came as a sudden ache, other days as a rush of energy that passed through her chest like a heartbeat that wasn't her own. She knew he was being tested, that his spirit was caught between two worlds. She didn't know the details, she didn't need to. Her heart had already accepted that love was not control, and freedom was the highest form of care. And so, she waited, not with longing, but with quiet faith. The light came slowly for him, the way dawn spills across a room before the sun itself appears. It began with small moments. He started noticing how his laughter sounded different when he forced it. He started realizing how tired he felt after every conversation with the woman who still called herself his world. He saw how every attempt to please her only made him disappear a little more. Then, one morning, he woke before the alarm. The house was still, the air soft. For the first time in years, he felt a pull to be outside, to breathe air that hadn't been touched by anyone else's expectations. He stepped out, and the world seemed brighter, sharper. The sky stretched wide and unjudging. And in that quiet, he heard a thought that wasn't quite his own: "You are allowed to begin again." He didn't know where it came from. Maybe it was something she had once said. Maybe it was something sacred within him finally rising to the surface. But it stayed. It became his prayer. Meanwhile, she began to dream again. In those dreams, there was no control, no chasing, only peace. Sometimes she saw him walking toward her across a field of light, not running, not reaching, just walking as if the distance between them had already dissolved. She would wake with tears on her cheeks and a strange calm in her chest. It wasn't sorrow anymore, it was knowing. As the days unfolded, he began to detach quietly. Not in anger, but in awakening. He stopped explaining himself. He stopped trying to fix what could not be healed through guilt. Each act of silence became a thread cut, each act of honesty a door opened. The woman who had controlled him felt the shift, and she grew restless. The more she tried to pull him back, the more he saw the difference between love and ownership. Freedom came not as thunder, but as a whisper that refused to die. And one day, without even planning it, he simply walked away. No words, no farewell, only a breath that felt like resurrection. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, it belonged to him. The journey back to his true heart was not quick. He stumbled through memories, through guilt, through moments of doubt. But with each step, the confusion faded, and the truth became clearer. He realized he had never stopped loving her, the one whose peace had once unsettled him. She had never tried to change him. She had never tried to hold him. She had only ever offered truth. He didn't know where she was now, but he carried her presence like light in his chest. It guided him, not as a destination, but as direction. And far away, she felt it too. A shift. A warmth. A release. She didn't need a message or a sign. The energy itself spoke. It told her that something sacred had completed its circle. Somewhere, a soul had been freed. Somewhere, a promise made in spirit had come back to life. When their paths finally crossed again, because such paths always do, there was no drama, no rush, no tears of apology. Only stillness. Recognition. Two souls that had learned, each in their own way, that love is never meant to imprison. They didn't speak of the past. They didn't need to. Their silence held everything: the lessons, the pain, the forgiveness, the freedom. He looked at her with eyes that finally saw. She smiled with peace that finally trusted. And in that moment, everything that had once been tangled became clear. Love had never been lost. It had only been waiting for light. The days that followed their reunion were quiet, but within that quiet, something holy began to unfold. The world around them seemed to breathe differently, as if the universe itself recognized that something long separated had found harmony again. They didn't rush to define what they were now. There were no grand declarations, no promises spoken into the air, only understanding, deep and unshakable. Both had learned that true love does not demand definition, it lives in presence. He found peace in her stillness. The confusion that had once haunted him had dissolved into clarity. For years, he had lived inside a fog of obligation and guilt, trying to make others happy, believing that love meant losing himself. But now, when he looked at her, he saw what love was meant to be, a mirror of truth. She didn't complete him, she reminded him he was already whole. She saw the change in him. The old restlessness was gone. His energy was softer, lighter, but stronger too, as if something within him had been reborn. He moved with purpose but not haste, spoke with care but not fear. He no longer carried the heaviness of someone trying to be understood. He had finally understood himself. Together, they began to rebuild, not the past, but something new. Sometimes they would walk without talking, their hands brushing lightly, the air between them charged with quiet grace. Sometimes they would sit under the stars, and he would tell her what it felt like to wake from confusion, how the moment of freedom had not come from anger, but from surrender. She would listen, not to fix or advise, but simply to be there, anchoring him in the now. There were nights when memories tried to return, when fear whispered that peace never lasts. But this time, they faced it together. They prayed, they breathed, they let silence answer instead of pain. And slowly, those old ghosts stopped visiting. The woman who had once controlled his heart became a distant echo, not an enemy, not even a regret. Just a chapter that had taught him how strong love can be when it's not bound by need. He sent her forgiveness in the quiet of his spirit, and in doing so, set both of them free. Their connection deepened, not through passion alone, but through peace. They learned to laugh again, not as escape, but as gratitude. They began to see how everything that had once hurt them had actually shaped them into what they were now, refined souls, tender but resilient. And one morning, as dawn brushed gold across their window, he reached for her hand. "Do you ever wonder," he asked softly, "why it took so long?" She smiled. "Because the soul doesn't hurry when it's learning to see." He nodded. He understood. Everything had needed to fall apart before it could align. Every delay, every silence, every tear had been part of the preparation. Without confusion, there could have been no clarity. Without separation, no true union. From that day, they began to create a life that reflected their healing. They poured their energy into what was good, kindness, creation, purpose. They didn't look back. They no longer needed signs or reassurance. They had become the sign, the living proof that love born of truth cannot die, only evolve. Their home became a place of light, laughter echoing through open windows, gentle music, prayers whispered not for protection, but for gratitude. They welcomed each sunrise as a new beginning, each sunset as a quiet promise that nothing sacred is ever lost. In time, others would look at them and wonder how something so peaceful could exist in a world of noise. But they knew. They had walked through confusion, through control, through loss and silence, and come out radiant. They had not been rescued, they had been reborn. Years later, he would still wake before dawn sometimes, step outside, and look at the sky the way he did the morning he first heard the whisper, "You are allowed to begin again." Now, he would smile, because he had. And she, watching from the doorway, would feel it too, that pulse of divine completion, that knowing that love had not been a destination, but a journey through shadow into light. They didn't need forever to be promised. Forever was already here. In every moment they chose truth over fear, peace over control, light over confusion. The silence that had once separated them had become the space where they met in soul. And as the sun rose one more time, painting the sky in gold and silver, it seemed to whisper what their hearts already knew: *Love that is set free will always find *its way home.